Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's department budget hearing. Today is Wednesday, May 2nd, 2024. We have three presentations tonight. We have the City Treasurer, Mayor's Office, and the Office of the Chief Operating Officer. I am Councilman Amilcar Hernandez, and I am the Chair of the Operations, Management, Budget, and Government Accountability Committee. This meeting is broadcasting live on HPA-TV's Xfinity Government Channel 96 and Frontier Government Channel 6032. It will also be streamed via HPA-TV.org, HPA-TV Facebook page, and HPA-TV Apple TV, Amazon TV, and Roku TV apps. It will also be made available on the HPA-TV YouTube channel. I would like to acknowledge my peers present here today. Starting on my right, Councilwoman Kelly Bilodeau, Council President Shirley Surgeon. To my left, Councilman John Gale, Councilman Josh Migton, and on the screen we have Majority Leader Marilyn Rossetti and Councilwoman Mali Rosado. First, in tonight's presentation will be the City Treasurer, and we have with us our City Treasurer, Carmen Sierra. Carmen Sierra, the floor is yours, and please introduce the leadership alongside with you tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Testing, can you hear me? Okay. Thank you, Councilman, Council President, and each of the council members. Thank you for this opportunity. I quickly would like to introduce the staff, portion of my staff here. To my left is the Senior Manager, Sean Antoine, Wayne Moore, who became our new Chief Investment Officer since April 12th. And Gary Draghi, who decided to retire, and after at least a week of golf, I told him to come back and be one of our consultants during the period of transition. And then, of course, we have our Chief Administrative Officer, Shay Ive. So the first, as you know, the Office of the City Treasurer is independently elected, and I'm the custodian of all the city funds. There's 5 things that I strive for with my staff. One is excellence and integrity. The other one is customer friendly. You can come to our office anytime, any day. We serve as a city fiscal watchdog. We are a team player, and we also believe strongly in diversity, equity, inclusion, which I will discuss a little bit more through our presentation. The next slide, you're going to see the organization chart. Briefly, the employees here are employee paid by the general fund. Please note at the bottom, we are required to maintain the current staffing level, to maintain internal controls in accordance with GAAP standards, and of course, the city internal audit department. The next slide, you're gonna see our diversity staff. Diversity does make a difference in culture, as well as leadership and performance. And so my office, we have diversified for the past few years. We have a total of 5 people that live in Hartford, 8 that live outside of Hartford. We have Hispanic, African American, West Indian, Caucasian, Asian, Turkish. The majority are female, 9 to 4 men, sorry, but no, it's still a great team in our office. The role and responsibility of the city treasurer, if you look at the charter, is very technical when you read it, so I try to make it as simple as possible. On number 1, the mayor and I serve as the co-issuer of all the city bonds. As you know, being that we're still under MARB, we cannot issue bonds until 2027, but I'm still working with the chief financial officer, Leanne, and revising the debt policy for the city. We invest the asset of the city pension and OPEB, that's the MRF and OPEB, the city and the Board of Ed. We manage all the city cash and conduct all the banking relationship. That is with Webster Bank, Liberty Bank, TD Bank, Bank of America, and of course, the state STIF. We invest and disburse city trust funds. We have a total of 35 million, and out of that, 25 million is the Hartford Park Trust Funds. We administer the city deferred compensation program. One is the 401A, which is unclassified employees, 403B, the Board of Education employees, and the 457, that applies to all employees. We administer all the pension benefit, from doing our payroll to our pensioners, counseling, deaths, changing forms, and keeping everyone informed. The next is my office aims to save taxpayer dollars while maximizing our ability to generate revenue. We generated a total of 9.5 million in 23 and now to 24. Out of that, 8.2 million is in interest income and short investment vehicles, like I said, the banks and stuff. 271 million in rebates, the e-payable and the Paymo X program, that's for vendors only, and 1 million in interest income from the Hartford Trust Fund assets. Again, those 26 of them, and they are my website. It will explain to you what they stand for and how much we could allocate. Then the recommended general fund budget for the Treasurer's Office is 549,250. The high percentage come from custody of funds, 82%, 450,238. The second is the Executive Office, which is 83,000, 15.2%. And then the investment is 2.8%. That's 15,406. If you compare the fiscal year 24 and 25, 25 was adopted at 532,905. The recommended for 2025 is 549,250. The difference is 16,345, and that is due to the inflation of supplies and the car services, as well as salary, contractual commitment, and promotion. In addition to my fiduciary responsibility in the operation of my office, I also responsible in making sure that the community is served with different programs of different opportunity. And I do that with partners. So one of the biggest partners we have so far is Liberty Bank and CADIC, which is the Connecticut Attorney Title Insurance Company. And they have the Good Neighborhood Program helping residents to achieve home ownership. In 23, they had closed 56 mortgages on property for the city of Hartford resident, and they had a pre-qualified of 157 applicants to purchase a home. And the other part that they do, recommended from us, is that they provide workshop on different topics to prepare the community to get to that point. One is credit related, budgeting, home buying workshop, and healthy banking. My staff, the plan administrator, Nicole Plessy-Cloud, as well as Shay, they work very closely with the director of HR, Marlene Fleeting, and her staff, and we try to incorporate as much information on financial literacy in our monthly HRB employees. We cover retirement planning for the employees, insurance needs assessment of empty nesters and retirees, healthcare costs in retirement, and how retirement spending changes with time. Believe it or not, financial literacy is a big crisis in the country. Partnership continues again with Liberty Bank and a couple of other partners. We did our first bilingual financial literacy symposium last year. 134 parents, community members, partners, and students attended. And we offered 4 important workshops: budgeting basics, understanding your credit, understanding free application for federal student aid, mortgage, pre-home ownership. We did a survey. Out of that, 80% of participants rated the event 5 to 5, with 2 most popular workshops being budgeting basics and understanding your credit. We also worked very closely. 4 years ago, we identified 1.6 million to the museum in collaboration with 5 partners organization, the YMCA, Scholar, Hartford Parent University, Legacy Foundation, and the Children's Museum. And we came up with a collaboration of a program called, the center called STEM, which is Technology and Engineering, Arts, and Mathematics. This helped the community, the students, the parents, to get involved in these areas, and to, especially the children, they love this, to be able to be exposed to these areas that hardly people don't have a lot of activities. Then the other one is internship. I've been doing this since 12 years ago, making sure our Hartford kids have an opportunity, at least one or two from Hartford Public School, and the other 2 from different colleges. So last year we did a two students, one that is now a freshman at the University of Connecticut, and the other is a senior at Capital Preparatory Magnet School. And these individuals have the opportunity to learn what we do in our office hands-on, as well as working with the investment managers in the pension administration unit. We also provide more now than before because of COVID, in-person pension-related outreach to city departments, including new employee benefit orientation session, counseling session, and a provisional review to the city collective bargainings. In 2023, there were approximately 100 members outreach session comprised by Mary Watson. Many of you know who she is. She's been with us forever. Out of that, 21 new member orientation were conducted, 75 individual member counseling, 5 plan provision summary presentation to collective bargaining group like the Board of Education, School Crossing Guard, and the Hartford Police Union. It's very critical for employees to understand their benefits. Then the other collaboration is, or accomplishment is we manage a total of $190 million in the city deferred compensation plan. And as of September 30th, 2023, under the 401 plan, we have $1.1 million across 68 participants. And the 403, which is the Board of Ed, is $32.8 million across 1,544 participants. And the 457B for everyone is $156.7 million, and we have 1,724 participants. Again, we try to make sure that people understand their benefits, especially the 457, which is optional for them to take advantage and prepare themselves in the future. And then on June 30th, 2023, which is the month we always wait for and pray that we do well, right, Sean? Yeah. The MRF, which is the Municipal Employees Retirement Fund, the investment portfolio was a value of over $1.75 billion compared to last year over $1.20 billion. There was an increase of $55 million, and this increase was after the payment of $118.8 million in pension benefits. And we paid approximately 3,500 retirees. Out of the 58 investment managers that we work with in the fund, 20 are diverse-owned or diverse-led managers. That represent $255 million out of the total MRF asset. Again, when we talk about diversity, equity, inclusion, it's not just the staff, but it's also making sure that the investment managers we work with are diverse. They make a difference, and they make a difference in the performance of our pension. We also completed a very thorough, within a very short period of time, an RFP for both our general investment consultant and our alternative investment consultant. We have not had an RFP for the last 14 years. And best practice require you to do so. And we did, and this helped improve the governance transparency as well as the best value for the needs of the MRF. And then we talked about our next initiative for 2024-25. We are continuing to partner with the Bank of America on the implementation to merge the e-payables and payable technology programs into one platform. This will help us at least make electronic payment more efficient and secure approximately 350 members enrolled. We anticipate an additional 165 vendors as part of the merger, and we are offering vendor access to efficient payment platform and reducing the production cost, which is $8,000 a year. We plan to roll out a banking fair to connect employees and community to available banking services. And we also want to identify all the bank programs to make sure home ownership are affordable to the Hartford residents. We continue to partner with Human Resource Benefit Team to provide information resources and educational seminar workshops on topic related to deferred compensation and plans and also retirement saving through Voya. We definitely would like to work or continue to work with the city administration on ways to fund the other post-employee benefit called OPEB, Trust Fund for the City Employee. I'd like to share something with you. And we also would like to continue the dialogue with the city administration to identify factors driving the actuarially determined employee contribution, called ADAC, and other factors that impact pension costs. When all of you, or those that could attend at the meeting that I conducted, we did started that conversation as to which way, if any, we could begin talking to the HR department, which we have. Nicole Plessy-Cloud, the plan administrator, has her dialogue with Marlene as well as Deb, who does the contract, and beginning to see how we could identify ways on the pension side to help reduce the ADAC. I'm also going to have a gathering or a meeting with the actuarial person and each and one of you that want to attend, so that you can have a better understanding also of how the ADAC is comprised and be able to have all your questions answered moving forward. My office will continue to hire the best in-class management manager to produce the good returns, which in turn will contribute to the reduction of the unfunded liability of $507 million in essence. We are here, we are long-term investors. We are not in and out of the market that will create and add more risk to our portfolio. It's a big difference. How I invest my money as an individual and my responsibility investing money as for the employees of the city of Hartford. I know my time is short, so thank you very much. If you have any questions, if not, send them to me in writing and I'd be happy to come back or answer them.
Thank you, Madam Treasurer. I'm going to open up the floor for my colleagues to ask any questions or make any statements at this point. I'm going to start looking on my right side. Assistant Majority Leader T.J. Clark.
Thank you, Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, thank you, Madam Treasurer, for your presentation, and hello to your team. Question: when we adopted the 401A back in 2018, was it? Yeah. How, and I think that's for all new unclassified employees, how much has that affected the MRF?
How much is what?
How much has, with the new employees now automatically being enrolled in the 401A, how much has that affected now the contributions to the MRF?
The 401A
Yes.
on the MRF? I'm trying to hear you. I couldn't hear you.
So the new employees,
On the new employees.
the new employees,
Yeah.
because now every person, I forgot what
After
the,
2019, yeah, they have to go.
oh, so it's 2019, all right. So
Only
everybody after
unclassified.
2019.
Only the unclassified employees.
So how much has that affected the MRF contribution for the new employees that have joined City Hall?
It doesn't affect the MRF contribution.
Did the ADAC payment?
Yes.
None.
Yeah, we don't have the exact number, sir, but we can certainly get that. But I would say that it's de minimis. It's a small number of people in the 401A program.
Okay. And is it more costly to manage the 401A program now? Basically, is it worth even having?
It's costly. We say that from the beginning. It's very costly.
And how much roughly, well, a rough estimate, how much does it cost the city to run that program?
I don't have my number. Do you?
Well, we don't break that out.
No, we don't break it
separately.
out.
It's a small, I mean, it's incremental to the normal running of the MRF. It's a small amount. It doesn't affect our decisions regarding where to allocate the assets to. It really doesn't affect materially anything that we're doing. It's a small piece.
Okay.
It's still time consuming and a lot of paperwork.
Could you, excuse me, could you say that for the intent and purpose that it was created, does it save the city any money at the end of the day?
I don't have those numbers with me, but I'll be happy to work with the team to make sure that we could get that information.
And what would it take, let's say, we want to get rid of it, what would it take just a simple ordinance
Get
change?
rid of the 401A?
Yeah. And move everybody that starts,
That's not gonna be that easy, but we can look into it legality, if that could be done. Because you remember, that's, y'all created, y'all voted on it, the ordinance.
I remember I was
Yeah,
here,
y'all voted-
but
y'all
if,
voted on it. I mean, the whole purpose was at the beginning, if I recall, was for the department heads, right? Many of them come in and they leave,
Yeah.
and they just want something like the 401A versus the MRF. But the way it was written, it included also others unclassified. So that's why we are in this predicament. So we have to probably review everything with our attorney as well and see how, if any, it can be done.
because if there was a change to happen, everybody who starts would just automatically be enrolled in the MRF, correct?
I can't say that that's going to be the case. What I said is I'm going to look into it with staff as well as our legal counsel and see which direction, if any, that can go.
Okay.
And of course, y'all have to play a role because y'all created it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Madam President.
No, it wasn't bad. Good evening, Madam Treasurer, and thank you so very much for your presentation. I'm looking in the budget book, and you said there were 3 persons in your executive office? And so, but how many people are being paid from the general funds, and how many people are paying from the pension fund?
So I only show you on the organization chart, you have custody fund, there's 5 people. In the executive office, there's 1, which is Shay. And the investment is a portion of the salary, which is Sean. So the salary, like Shay is paid 50-50. Shay is paid 50% from the general fund and then 50% from the MRF. She does both work. Same thing with Sean. Sean is, let me see, I got it right here. Yeah, I got it. Sean is 85 general fund, and then 10% of the MRF and 5% of the OPID. The financial system manager custody fund, she's 90% general fund, 5% MRF, and 5% OPID. These are the people, 80% are more the responsibilities related to the city general fund.
So your salary paid from the pension, not from the general funds?
No, my salary as a treasurer is broken down to same thing, 80, 75, 5, and 15, I think it is. I have to look at it.
I'm sorry?
It's breaking down into the MRF, general fund MRF, and the OPID, the 3 plans.
Okay, so it's broken down with the general
Yeah.
fund, the MRF, and the other, I think it's just 3.
Many years back, we did try to relieve some of the burden by putting in a portion of the MRF as well as the OPID, as much as we could have,
Okay.
if you are doing that type of work.
Okay.
Okay?
So it's general fund, MRF,
And OPID.
and OPED. And so for you, you probably get like about 20% of the general fund? Because I'm trying to figure that out. In the executive office, there's only about 83,000 coming out of the general fund for 3 individuals.
Sure, we don't have that.
Am I missing?
We broke it, our salaries broke it down into general fund, MRF, and OPID.
Okay. Oh, so then can you just provide us with a percentage of each?
Yeah, you could get that also from the budget director. But I would be happy to send it to you.
I would thank you
Madam-
so very
Madam-
much.
Madam
I
Chair.
would appreciate that. Thank you so very
Absolutely.
much. If you can do that for me, I would
could get you
really,
that,
truly
yes.
appreciate it.
Not a problem.
And I think I only have one other question. And since 2019, when the 401A was instituted, do we know total number of how many people, I think you said it here, how many people are in the 401?
I didn't break it down.
68 participants, sorry. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, and page 11, and they've contributed, like, is that this is their
That's
contribution?
how many participants in the plan.
Is,
I don't know these by heart. Hold on.
and that is on page 11.
Yeah. Yep. 68 participant.
Yeah, and so
the
that
fund
is,
1.1 million.
so that is their total contribution.
No,
Oh, from two,
that's the fund itself.
that's what's in the fund itself. Okay,
That's correct.
plus contribution plus
That's for
earnings.
city and employees.
For those 68. So while you are, if you don't mind, again, cordially, if you, when you get time, could send me if those 68 participants were in the pension, the MRF, what would their contribution and what would the costs be? I'm not sure if that's the same question you would ask. Yeah, same. All right. So whatever you send to Assistant Majority Leader regarding the difference for that 68 person, would like to see the difference between the 401A and the pension fund.
It depends on what union they're in.
But, so, the 401A, these are for,
Unclassified.
okay.
You trying to say, you asked me, can we
Yeah.
take those 68 participants and move them to the MRF?
well, what would the cost be? You know, what would, just curious.
Okay, again, the question will be first, can we do that, right? And I said that I will go back with staff and our legal counsel, see how that could be done, and what role you could have to play to make it happen, and what role we have to play to make it happen.
We just want an estimated cost from you. That's what I'm really looking for. You know, whenever you have time.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Majority Leader Rossetti.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Madam Treasurer, for your presentation, and thank you to your staff. On, in 10-3 in the budget book, under Executive Office, and I think I know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Under short-term investments, it says provide income earned on temporarily idle general fund cash. What's considered temporarily idle general fund cash?
Yes, hi, Councilwoman. Temporary idle cash is any funds that come into the city, whether it be educational cost sharing, whether it be the interest earned off of the dollars, or any funds that come in to the city, that would go into a short-term investment vehicle. So that would be temporary housed in that vehicle, and it can be also at the banks. So we do, as the Treasurer mentioned, we do work with about 4 different local banks that also house our money temporarily. So it's daily liquidity, so we can get to those funds relatively easy.
Thank you. What's considered temporary? What's the time limit on that?
So depending on the needs of the cities in terms of expenditures, so we have a biweekly payroll, we have a biweekly vendor report, we have biweekly reports that come out, whether it be for Cigna, for any of the healthcare costs, for any of the union costs, lawsuits that come down. So those monies are held in a vehicle that's we can access relatively easy. So they would be considered temporary. They're still being invested and earning some kind of interest income, but it's money that we can access easily.
To
So
pay the
I would
bills.
just use the word temporarily as such.
And each of these banks provide different interest rate, including STIF, which is the highest rate, 5.4% at this point.
Okay,
Thank you. All I have is one quick question. Bank fees. Can you talk to me a little bit about that? On 2023, there was 0 bank fees from the custody, what is that division? Custody of funds. There was no bank fees. So far in 2024, there hasn't been any, at least through December. Can you talk to me about why there hasn't been any bank fees? Because the adopted budget, or the recommended budget is 80,000. The adopted budget this year was also 80,000, but there hasn't been any expenses.
Back fees?
Bank fees.
Oh, the bank fees.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So, yeah, so the reason why we're able to the reason why we're able to not have any bank fees is because the dollars that we get in and we invest in the local banks, well, our biggest bank is Bank of America, they use some of the earned interest credits towards those fees. And so that offsets the fees that the treasurer's office would pay for anything. So it's saving the city dollars, saving our budget.
So that being true, do you expect for those credits to go away, or because the ask on the budget was to still keep that $80,000 there on that line item?
Well, we would always like to have that line item because we never know. Let's just say the state decides not to fund the pilot as they're doing right now, and we don't have that minimum that's required so that way we can get those credits. That may be an instance where we might need that line item to cover some of those bank fees. But for now, because the cash flow has been coming in pretty good, we've been able to not have any bank fees on the city side.
And Bank of America has other programs.
Thank you. Councilman Gill.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. In your presentation, I think you indicated that you have a total of 13 employees. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And
There's other vacancies.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. How many vacancies do you
I
have?
think 4, if I recall, 4 or 5.
Okay, all right, because in the budget book, I think it
Yeah.
notes that there are a total of 18 positions, so
Yeah.
that would be probably 5 vacancies.
That includes the MRF side. Some of the employees from the MRF side that are the vacancies that are open.
Okay, but that 18 total, that's all of the
Yep,
employees,
all
whether
of
they're
them.
MRF-funded,
Yep.
grant-funded, city-funded, it's the
Yeah.
total office, it's your total office. Okay, thank you. Second question, in page 12 of your presentation, you talked about a bank fair, and I'm just wondering it doesn't sound like it's something you've done yet, but you're planning to do, and I'm wondering
Yeah, we did it, it was done many years ago where they invited all the different banks and they provide different type of, they share all the different type of resources or programs they have to help the community. I think we did it here, as a matter of fact.
Okay, so that would be that's what I was going to ask, is how that looks. So you invite a whole bunch of different banks
Yeah.
to come in. Got it. I'm just going to mention this to you. I know we mentioned this when we met with you, but we're in the public sphere now, so I'm going to throw it out there. As a taxpayer and other taxpayers in town who get their tax bills, they sort of recoil when they see that their tax money is going to be sent to Boston, Massachusetts. And you may be aware that all the tax payments that individuals are making, when you get your bill, it says to mail it to Boston, Massachusetts. And I understand that that's because of our banking relationship with Bank of America. And so respectfully, I would ask the treasurer to sit down with the Bank of America and see if they could figure out a way to actually get a mailing address in Hartford. I understand it's a lockbox and that this is somehow sophisticated. It just strikes me that when we've got the sums of money that we have, we're a pretty good customer for Bank of America, and maybe they could figure out a way to get a lockbox in Hartford so that I don't get calls from people asking me, how come my tax money is going to Boston?
Your comments were well taken, and we have a meeting scheduled for the following week to find out more about that matter. And we'll
Cer-
get back to you.
Certainly appreciate it. I have one last question, if I may, Mr. Chair. I see that you have, you listed here that there are 58 different investment managers. I'm assuming that these investment managers come and go, that you have relationships with investment managers, and from time to time you choose new ones and replace old ones with others. I'm just wondering what that process looks like, whether when you're changing investment managers, how you go about choosing the new ones, and also wondering, as we sit here today, how many of the investment managers you have today are the same investment managers you had, say, 5 years ago?
Well, first of all, we believe in long-term relationship when we do this type of investments, and which we have already. Many of our managers been with us for many, many years and been performing excellent. So there hasn't been many, hardly any, probably one or two that we got rid of. But I'm going to allow Wayne, my new Chief Investment Officer, to explain the process, which is very straightforward and is in writing.
The process is that it begins with, to answer your question, what the reason would be for making the change, what's driving it. So it could, if it would say performance related, which is primarily why you're changing, I mean, you could change the manager for performance reasons directly related to the manager, or you could also change your asset allocation structure. There are a number of things that give rise to the need to reallocate the portfolio. Let's say it was a case where the manager was underperforming. There are a series of steps that we would go through that could ultimately lead to the termination of the manager and the reallocation to somebody else that's already on our roster, or we could go out and conduct a search in conjunction with one of our consultants. So it really starts with what the reason for the trouble is. We have a watch list process to identify underperforming managers, and we work with them to take, we would work with them to take remedial steps that might improve performance. We would increase the level of contact and engagement with the firm, so we would be much more mindful of what the month-to-month, as opposed to quarter-to-quarter performance might be. That's just a series of things that we would do, but it really depends on what the reason for the concern is in the first place, and then we would tap into a variety of remedial steps that we would take to correct the problem.
Of the 58 that you, investment managers that you currently have, do you know how many of them have been with you throughout the last 5 years, or do you know how many have changed in the last 5 years?
Well, rather than guess, I mean, I have a list of all the managers with me, but as the treasurer mentioned, we're long-term investors, and most of these managers have, especially over the past 3 to 5 years, have performed well in advance of whatever benchmark they may be measured against. So I think it's just a small number, just judging by the number of searches that we've conducted, which have not been many.
Well, Councilman, I allow the staff to do the due diligence as well as a consultant, but at the end of the day, I have no hesitation to get rid of any manager, diverse or non-diverse, that is not doing their job.
If you could get back to us with, I would just be interested in the number of changes that have occurred over the last 5 years. Thank you.
Right, and you're talking overall, because one thing I would mention is we have a private markets program for private equity, credit, real estate, commodities. Those managers are in long-term contracts, so they would be unlikely, very unlikely to change over time. But we can, why don't we focus on the 58 managers? That's the number that's in the presentation, and we can get something to you on that regard.
That would be fine. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilman Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Treasurer Sierra and team. I have a question actually about the mayor today announced a way that he was getting some money for our schools, which involved, I don't really understand, but I know that it involved borrowing some money, taking, I'm not clear. It involves the pensions. And I read the news story and I talked to the mayor briefly, but I will confess that I don't quite understand what the mechanism is. Can you just explain that to me like I am dumb, which I am in this regard?
Which mechanism?
In other words, somehow there's this $4 million that's coming in some way from the pension, and I don't understand how.
First of all, I saw the press release before I came here, so I didn't get a chance to see it. And second, I have to have more conversation with the mayor as well with council to make sure that the process, or maybe the way it was taken, is different than what I thought after a certain conversation. The OPID trust fund is to pay the benefit for the retirees. It's the Board of Education Trust. We administer it. They provide us with the invoices of any claims that is being made. For the past 5 years, we have not received any claims, and every time we have our pension commission meeting, which is on our minutes, Wayne, who does the report of the OPID, always asks if there's any drawdown, and the answer is no. So if there is no drawdown, and we find out after the fact that there was, then that's pretty much a question I need to ask, where is that being paid from? I don't get to see the Board of Education budget. I only pay the bills. So that 4.5, I'm not sure how that came about. But again, if they have not submitted any claims for 5 years, that's a question you need to ask them as to where are they paying if they receive any claim from the operation budget. I'll be happy to have more conversation about this, but the first time I see the press release, I didn't get to see it.
So this plan that the mayor announced in the press release, that wasn't something that you and he worked on ahead of time to figure out that money?
I did not see the press release. But again, when the council members came to my office, my staff talked about the OPID. We basically made it clear that they have not drawn down any of the claims, and every time we do ask, there's nothing. So for the past 5 years, that's a lot. So yeah, probably you need to ask them, the Board of Ed. Wayne, you want to add anything else to that?
Sure. As the treasurer said, we just really saw the announcement this afternoon. So the way this works is that under Mayor Segarra in it was 2015 signed the declaration of trust that gave rise to the legal entity that is the OPEB fund, and it established a structure that ultimately became one in which the pension commission oversees the fund along with the treasurer, and the Board of Ed initially contributed approximately $17 million. Somewhere around 2 years later, about 2017, that amount of money has grown to approximately $26.5 million at present. To the extent that the board incurs, and these funds are to pay medical benefits, so dental, vision, things of that nature. There's a hierarchical process which we can show you if you want to see it. We brought it with us today, that illustrates the steps they would have to go through to be reimbursed for claims that they had previously paid out in their cash flow. And once those are presented to the pension commission, we can then verify the claims and pay the money out. As the treasurer was saying, over the last several years, there haven't been any, and so we don't really get into the inner workings of how the Board of Ed works. This is a very simple process of they present bills, receipts, and we can advance the funds. I might ask Mr. Antoine, who helped design the disbursement system, if he could comment.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Moore. So, I'll just mention this quickly. So the board OPEB started, as Mr. Moore said, back in 2017 with approximately $17.4 million. And as of March 31st, the fund's assets totals are approximately $26.2 million, which is up $8.8 million increase since inception of the fund. The city's OPEB, which is currently has about $174,000 in there. When you first made the contribution, is currently around $200,000. That's about $16,000 investment income in that account. And so, in terms of the process, as Mr. Moore had mentioned, we do have a copy of it here, and again, we can certainly, the treasurer can certainly circulate this through the members of the committee, but the invoices basically come down to the board. The board puts it into the system. A warrant is created. The warrant comes to the treasurers for review to make sure it's in compliance with the trust. If everything is in compliance with the trust, she then presents it to the OPEB committee, and then the OPEB committee gives the approval, and treasurer signs off to release the funds to the board. So that's, in a nutshell, that's in its simplicity, that's the easiest way I can say it. There's a little bit more to it, but again, it's all dictated on the claims that come in terms of the healthcare from Cigna, Anthem, and Caremark, which is the Blue Cross Blue Shield, the CVS Caremark. Once those come down, that's how we pay the invoices. So it has to get approved and make sure everything is in compliance.
So, I mean, I'm afraid that I'm asking stupid questions here because this is way above my general understanding, all of this business, but that $26 million that has, from what you're telling me, barely been drawn down since its creation, or at least not recently. Does there exist some way to draw from that money for, say, general Board of Ed funding shortfalls? That's what I'm trying to understand, if that's
No.
relevant to
No.
this.
No.
Just to pay the bills, the benefits.
Right, the language is very clear as to what the use of the funds can be. And if you refer to the release that came out today, it referred to the Pension Commission having a role regarding the 4.5 million, and so we're familiar with the Pension Commission, obviously, but it didn't seem to specify any new uses of the funds than what is already in the ordinance.
So the board is paying for these invoices currently through a pay-as-you-go system. So if they were to, I think the treasurer mentioned this earlier, but if they sent those invoices down to the treasurer's office instead of paying them, so we have actual invoices, then we can, those funds that they're using, I'm not sure which account they're pulling those funds from, those funds can be pulled from the OPEB. So it's a matter of how they do their accounting. So whether you take it, let's just say OPEB is B, right? And the Board of Ed general fund or ledger is A. They're pulling from A instead of pulling from B.
But we could still reimburse. And we have a document way back when Kelly was assistant town clerk that dealt with the OPEB.
So in other words, as best as you all know, right, because I gather that none of you know exactly how this is working, which is fair. I'm not trying to put you on the spot. I'm trying to just understand for me. Through a different approach to accounting, like some things can be paid from this $26 million and some things cannot. And so we can pay some of the things that we were going to pay from the $26 million, or pay more things from one place to leave money left over to pay other things. Is that what you're telling me? That's how this would work?
What I'm saying is, if I have an invoice that says CVS Caremark and it says $10,000, I'm going to send that invoice down to the treasurer's office for review. And then if it passed muster, or if it's within compliance or guidance or the guidance of the trust, it then goes back to the board. The board will then put it into their system, their accounting system, which will generate a warrant. The warrant will then be sent back to the treasurer because now there's an actual payment that's due, right? And so when that payment comes down, the treasurer will then bring it to the OPEB committee. The OPEB committee will usually we'll approve it, because if it's something that's passed muster and went through the treasurer's office, and then the treasurer will then release the funds to the board to cover that cost. What I'm saying they're doing is they're not even coming to us. They're not coming to the treasurer's office. As Mr. Moore said, since the fund's been established, we haven't had any draws on the fund.
But if they have claims, which, you know, we have to ask them, then you need to ask them where they're paying it from. And if it's $1 million or whatever the case might be, that should be coming out from the OPEB. The best we could do is reimburse that back.
Go ahead, Gary.
But you can't use that money for anything else. Gary. Oh, my retiree, go ahead.
Hi. Councilman, I just wanted to just back up a little bit. What we have here, or what we deal with, is what we call the OPEB trust fund. It's a legal trust that is set up to pay post-retirement employee benefits. In this case, health benefits for Board of Education employees. So the trust specifies what can be paid. So, you know, I don't know that, as we're describing, there is a process for evaluating that and making sure that that process is properly complied with. But as far as any other uses of funds, we wouldn't know about that, or you know, be able to necessarily, I think, talk about that, you know, unless we understood what the intent was as far as the use of funds.
Got you. Thank you. I got nothing else.
Thank you. We'll have one last question, and then we'll be wrapping up this one. Councilman Gale?
Sure.
Councilman Gale.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One last question, one last request, I guess, if you could get us back this information. In your presentation, you noted that the fund balance as of June 30th, 2023 was $1.075 billion, and the fund balance as of June 30th the year before, 2022, was 1.02. Nice $55 million increase. Could you provide us with the 3 prior years, so we would have a 5-year look back? So June 30th, 2021, June 30th, 2020, and June 30th, 2019.
Sure.
Thank you.
All right.
I think there's one more clarification question from Rossetti. Go ahead, Sean.
Yes. So also, Councilman Gale, I know you're requesting some information, but while you wait, we do have our performance reports on the Treasurer's website. This also gives you detailed information in terms of our monthly performance. It gives you detailed information in terms of when a manager was hired, their since inception date. So I just wanted to, just for the council's information, anytime you have some free time, go to the Treasurer's website. There's a wealth of information on there. And the website is updated monthly in terms of when we get the performance reports, so it'll be available. So I hope that's a little bit helpful to you guys. Also, Councilwoman Rossetti, I just wanted to clarify one thing. In terms of the idle cash, I just want to make sure that it's understood that there's not a penny in the Treasurer's office that's not invested. Every dime that we get, whether it be, again, from educational cost sharing, from any institution that we get, it's invested in the market. So there's nothing that's idle. It just may be a metaphor that we use in the office and it's probably gotten out, but there's no cash that's idle. Everything is in short-term investment or some type of investment vehicle at the banks.
Thank you. It was an odd term, I thought.
Okay.
So thank you.
You're welcome.
And if you have any, our website is pretty friendly to navigate, but if you can't find any document or have any problem, just email me and we'll get it to you.
Thank you. Well, Madam Treasurer and your team, thank you for your presentation tonight. We will take a few minutes break for transitioning to the next department, and next on deck will be the mayor's office. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
All right, welcome back, everyone. We're gonna now go to our second department for the night. And with us, we have our mayor's office, led by our chief of staff, James Wolf. James, please, the floor is yours, and introduce the leadership alongside with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of council. My name is James Wolf. I'm Chief of Staff for Mayor Aralampalam. I'm joined by Janice Castle, the Director of Community Engagement for the city, and we are honored to join you this evening and really appreciate the hard work that you're doing through this process, and we're excited to come before you tonight. So we'll move quickly through the presentation. Let's get it up. So I'll speak briefly to the mission of the Office of the Mayor. As we know, that's located in Chapter 5 of the Charter. The Mayor's Office is responsible for developing and directing the execution of the Mayor's vision and key initiatives, including, but not limited to, maintaining the city's fiscal strength, working to increase accountability and transparency, improving quality of life, and coordinating with other government entities to pursue policies and partnerships that benefit the city. Moving on to the organization chart, we have the Deputy Chief of Staff, the Special Assistant to the Mayor. Our Research and Communication Assistant position is vacant. We also have an Executive Assistant. And then I will touch on the Office of Community Engagement and the Business One Stop in other slides. Under the Office of the Mayor, as I mentioned, we have the Office of Community Engagement with Janice Castle. She has 6 folks reporting to her, and 5 of those positions are housed within the Office of the Chief Operating Officer for budget purposes. Also, under the Office of the Mayor, we have the Business One Stop, which is directed by Don Chapman, and he's got an administrative assistant that is currently, that position is vacant and should be filled on Monday, and that position is also housed within the Office of Development Services. Briefly, some highlights. Since taking office on January 1st, 2024, Mayor Aralampalam's office has worked to support the efforts of all departments and to advance the interests of the city as a whole, including through the Office of Violence Prevention, the creation of that office, the development of the Department of Sports and Recreation to increase youth engagement and improve health and wellness, increasing support for emerging small businesses through the creation of the Hartford Business One Stop, and also establishing the Housing Liaison and the Problem Landlords Task Force to increase accountability for problem landlords that don't meet the needs of quality housing for tenants. Move on next to Janice, who has been here much longer with the city than I have and has a lot more information to offer at this point. So Janice, please take it away.
Thank you, James. Good to be with you tonight, council members. On this slide, you will see some of the accomplishments that we've had in the Office of Community Engagement. One of our big initiatives, as you know, is our Love Your Block project. So for the fiscal year 24, we had 26 projects and infused about $225,000 into the community from those projects. As part of that initiative with the Hartford Foundation, we also get funds to continue to extend our engagement arm with the community, and some of those events included our Earth Day celebration at City Hall. We had the inaugural one last year. We restored the Black Lives Matter mural on Trinity Street. We worked with the community members last year for the first year to try and consolidate our national night out and really have an impact. We held one in the north end of Hartford and one in the south end of Hartford. We partnered with the Office of Equity and Opportunity to deliver multicultural events such as the Caribbean Heritage kickoff celebration and our Juneteenth Freedom Day celebration. We also brought many families to City Hall in partnership with the Department of Family and Youth for our city Halloween event. And as always, we had a great event when we hosted our citywide holiday toy distribution event last year. We also received funding to create a promotional video on the benefits of trees and encouraging tree planting in our city, which was directly to support the efforts of our sustainability office as well as Public Works. We worked to deliver 3 Domingo Open Streets event, both in Northeast, Frog Hollow, and Parkville in 2023. We also continue to provide support for Larrabee Fund as well as Operation Fuel through our office, and we continue to use all means of communication, including our weekly One Hartford newsletter, our Facebook, Instagram, and even our Twitter page to reach residents continuously.
Thank you. All right, on to the budget comparison for fiscal year 2024 and 25. So as you'll see, there's a 3.6% increase from 24 to 25 due to wage increases. And then briefly, I'd like to touch on the staff composition. So we have 87.5% of our employees are residents of Hartford. And then we have the race and ethnicity breakdowns here and a 50-50 split for gender. And that concludes the presentation this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Wolf, for this presentation. I want to open up the floor for my colleagues to ask any questions or make any statements. Councilwoman Bilodeau.
Thank you for your presentation. I just have a quick question about the 311 reporting system. I know we moved to a new platform. Is there currently an app in place? Will there, if there is not, will there be an app in place to report any incidents?
Thank you for the question. Currently, we're working to develop a new app that will be compatible with the Acela system that we recently migrated to.
And do you know when that would roll out?
So we had our first meeting with the developers this week. They're going to take a look at all of the items that they have to integrate into the new system as they build it out for us, and they will get back to us with an approximate delivery time.
Thank you so much.
No problem.
Assistant Majority Leader Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for your presentation. A question, in this budget is, does the mayor anticipate providing wage increases for unclassified employees?
Wage increases for classified employees. That I will have to get back to you on.
Okay. And the communications and research assistant is vacant. Any plans to fill that anytime soon?
Yes, we do plan to appoint someone who's going to be taking that role. We are working on a job description and look to forward to filling that within the next few months.
And their role will be to run communications?
They would be in the communications assistant role, so assisting our deputy chief of staff with communications and helping to work with department heads as media inquiries come in and otherwise assisting the office.
All right. And last question, does the PIO position still fall within the mayor's office?
Yes, it does.
Okay. Do we have a PIO?
I am the PIO as well as the deputy chief of staff.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. PIO is Public Information Officer.
Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Double role. All right. How many hours a day do we work?
I don't know if you want the answer to that question, and definitely don't tell my wife.
I'm just, but that's great. Could you talk to us? Thank you so very much for your presentation, Janice. That was great. I know you do a yeoman's job for the city and all the community groups that you attend. She goes to all these NRZs. I'm like, glad you go exercising all the time. This is good. Keeps up your energy. Your business one-stop shop, if you could talk to us about it. And, how is it going? I know it's only, you guys have only been here for a couple of months. Your anticipation for it, and the goals.
Sure, I'll actually bring up Don Chapman, our director.
I'm sorry, Don, I put you in the hot seat.
That's quite all right. It's my pleasure to be here today. Is it on?
Turn the microphone
Is
on.
that better?
Yes.
Okay. It's my pleasure to be here today. Thank you for having me. To your question, the Business One Stop is basically doing very well. As you know, some of the city's systems are unfamiliar to small business people and even medium-sized business folks. I had an overwhelming response to the announcement, and folks have been pleased to be able to get that assistance that has been provided. What we basically do is we expedite permits and approvals, and we support our staff in finding out, or better way to say it, in communicating to some of the clients the things they need to provide so that their approval can go more smoothly. And it was just the missing link that we didn't have until now. And so it's going quite well. I'm excited. I'm having a good time. I think folks appreciate us doing this for them, and you'll have some reporting that shows the effect and the impact of it.
Okay. Are you mostly concentrating on over the last 4 years, we have done a lot of economic development downtown, you know, and there's a lot of small businesses in different parts of the community. You know, are you planning on reaching out to some of these small businesses? You know, one of the things I found out is our residents will put up a fence without knowing that they need to get a permit for a fence. You know, how are you planning on marketing, getting the word out so you can be of assistance to these people who need help so they don't, you know, get themselves in zoning trouble?
Well, we intend to do more public outreach. I've been around for a long time, and all the little guys, they pretty much know me, or if someone needs me, they find one of them and they've told people about me. I have great relationships with a lot of the community organizations in town, like SAMA, Urban League, many of the NRZs, and so folks find me. And I made my cell phone public so that they can contact me directly. I also intend, or I should say we also intend, to have some additional public events where we talk about the services we provide and how easy it is to get in touch with someone here that can help you. I think it's going pretty well for the 30 days or so that I've been doing it. And I think folks are seeing that they have access to the information they need.
Great. Thank you. Just
And,
one.
and the last thing I want to say is that I would say 90% of the people that have contacted me are from the neighborhoods, and they're smaller businesses. So that's really where the problem exists.
Yeah. One last question, Mr. Chair. So, you know, I know you keep some data, because I would be really interested a year from now to see, you know, what were the issues that were solved, you know, as we, you know, ramp up and beef up our staffing, you know, and the major department that is basically who are contacting you for their assistance is mostly development services. So I'll be really interested to see how this goes in here. So congratulations and thank you again for coming back and doing a second round of service to the city.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
That's the third round? What a second? What's the third round? No, the second. So when you left as a planner? Wait a second, Don, let's clarify something. So you were a planner with the city, you left, you
Nope, I
came...
didn't leave.
Okay, see?
Yep.
You transitioned to the small business.
And community development director.
All right, thank you so very much for that clarification.
Majority Leader Rossetti.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you, Chief of Staff, and every other hat you have, and thank you to your other staff. In the budget book on 8-1, I'm wondering if you can explain to me what coordinate with other governmental bodies to pursue the city's policy priorities means.
Yeah, I think it's, working with our federal delegation, our state delegation, the Metropolitan District Commission, and other governmental bodies to collaborate on solutions to issues and furthering projects that will benefit the residents of the city of Hartford.
Thank you. And then the other bullet, and I think this may have been answered at some point, but forgive me because I don't remember. Continue the city's pandemic recovery and responsible deployment of aid funds. What kind of funds do we have left?
I will have to circle back with you on that. I know we're continuing to spend down a significant amount of our ARPA funds, so I'll work with our budget office to get you a number on that.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Councilman Gale.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the presentation. Just to pick up on something that Councilwoman Rossetti just asked about, and kind of circling back to the PIO, the Public Information Officer. Do I take it that the city doesn't really have any government affairs person, anybody on the city payroll that's our lobbyist at the Capitol?
We have engaged a lobbying firm, Sullivan and Lashane.
And where's the budget item for Sullivan and Lashane, if you know?
It's in the back of the budget book in the sundry section.
Okay, good, thank you. And that's, do we also, I mean, I know at one time we were also paying to fund somebody in Washington. Are we still, is that still included in the budget, if you know?
We do have a federal government affairs representative, yes, we do.
So we have federal and we have somebody at the state legislature. Do we have anybody else that's doing government affairs for us?
That's the extent of it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All set, thanks.
Councilman Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks to you all for the presentation. Following up further on that question of lobbying, in terms of the state level lobbying, Sullivan and Lashane, it's your office that's sort of giving them direction, saying these are our priorities, do this, do that?
Yes, and to the extent of my time with the city, most of that work has been on, focusing on bill tracking and getting a general sense of, having boots on the ground at the state capitol, and eyes and ears there to understand, pieces of legislation, amendments that may arise that could have, a negative or positive impact on the city.
And is there, I assume that sometimes there are occasions when someone from the office, other than Sullivan, like you or the mayor or somebody, goes over to the legislature and meets with folks. Is that mostly you, or is that you and the mayor, or who's the point person for that?
It would be, the mayor, certainly as the chief executive, when he goes over there, is certainly taking meetings, and I would, interact with folks, in addition to that.
So I'm asking all this because I keep coming back to the same thing as I asked your predecessors there at the table, but there was just an announcement that the Board of Ed was going to get an extra $5 million from the state, but that's, we've kind of known that $5 million was coming through. The speaker, I think, told most of us about it some weeks ago. I guess I would like to know what have been the efforts we've made at the legislature to push harder on that. We're getting beat up by the school funding formula and all that stuff, which I know is a bigger question, but here we are in the hole. And I hope there's been a lot of work on our delegation behind the scenes, but I guess I'd like to know what's been going on, because it seems like from 2-3 weeks ago when Ritter said $5 million, to now, when he says 5 million, we haven't gotten any more.
Yeah, we certainly are advocating for the city of Hartford up at the state capitol, but I think it's a difficult year up at the capitol. There aren't a lot of budget adjustments being made, and so, we certainly advocate on behalf of the city, but there are, things happening up there that the delegation is working on that are, to a certain extent, out of our control. So we are one voice, and we rely on our delegation to work with, the other partners up there to make those adjustments and to bring additional funds. And, we continue to work with them, and we will in the future.
Totally unrelated question about 311. It used to be that when folks called 311 and got a work ticket, there was sort of a projected completion time, and also there was like a follow-up that you could know a thing was fixed. But now, if that exists, I don't know where it exists or how we follow it. Are we going to get that back?
Yes, so currently you can, when we do submit a case, the updates that we make allow for real-time updates, so you can see instantly as departments are working on those issues. So you'll get a lot more information and a lot more transparency when we do the app. One of the reasons that we really push for the integration is, I don't know if you guys were familiar, but prior to the integration to Acela, we were taking in 311 requests through one system, and the departments were managing it through another system. So getting timely updates on how quickly they're responding to a case required multiple efforts on our departments, on our staff, to be able to remember to go back to the old system after finishing. So the integration now, everything is tied together seamlessly, so that when the case is open, it actually is the system that the departments are working on. So what residents will now be able to see is they'll be able to see somebody working on it instantly. And so as soon as it goes to them, it start changing and start being in progress. So once we have the app, they'll be able to track it. Now they can on the website. We're continuing to monitor that. My staff provides updates when someone calls or email us. But again, once we have the app, we had hoped that the app would be compatible once we did the integration, but halfway through the integration, we found out that it's not. But the new app that we're getting, I think everyone will be really happy with it. It's a lot more user-friendly, and I think residents and we'll be sure to reach out to you when we start doing the testing, because we would love to have your input as we go through and test before we release to the public.
And one related last question, maybe more about the Acela system than 311. It's a question I also have asked of Development Services. It used to be that the public could see not just the progress of the individual ticket, but sort of data, right? We could see, for example, where are all the complaints coming from in the city? Where are all the potholes? Where are all the conditions complaints about housing? And last I checked, we didn't have that access anymore. So where are we with being, because what I remember Director Rothschild told me was that we would have that when we were all integrated with Acela. And I thought we were there, but.
Yeah, so we will be, we're working on the reporting and how it's viewed on the system, but you'll be able to see the pinpoints on the map, so you can sort of see where the requests are congregating, and we can use that information to assess where services are needed. Now we can really run reports a lot faster as well to tell where they are. So if there is anything that you need on demand, we can solely provide it, working closely with our MHIS. But we're also looking at best practices and some of the information that's presented by other municipalities to see what will be the most convenient, easy to access, and easy to understand for anyone who access the portal.
So what does that process look like time-wise to get to the point? I appreciate that, I can ask, but to get to the point where anyone could fairly easily see, where are the most conditions complaints, where are things getting fixed quickly, where are they getting fixed, what's the timeline on making that work?
So I'll check in with our MHIS team, but they've been working on it as we speak. So I will check in on them. We have regular check-ins since the integration. We've been focused more so on training and getting everyone up to speed and working out the kinks. But I'll get back to you with an answer on that.
Thank you, and I hope not as we speak, because they should be home with their families, those MHIS folks. Even though we're here, I hope the MHIS folks are not working on it as we speak. I hope they're home. Thank you, though.
You're welcome.
Well, thank you, Mr. Wolf and Janice Castle for this presentation. I see that there are no more questions, so well, there are. Okay, well, Assistant Majority Leader Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, this is to piggyback off Councilwoman Majority Leader Rossetti's question regarding collaborative, working with other municipalities. Is this administration open to regionalism?
You know, that's, I think a regional approach to solving problems is something that the mayor is interested in looking at and always interested in working with, you know, our partners from other municipalities to solve problems. But I think the term regionalism can get a little complicated. So I think we take things on a case-by-case basis.
And I'm not referring to regionalizing all efforts, but it's something that will, you know, make sense and maybe is comparable to the struggles that some of the our neighboring towns are experiencing, such as East Hartford, West Hartford, possibly Manchester. So just those little things, in particular, but not limited to sanitation, that type of collection, library services, other infrastructure, things like that that can seem like they're so small, but they can actually be major, and we can probably enter to some type of cost-sharing efforts. So, good.
You know, I think there have been some conversations with, you know, other municipalities about working on smaller partnerships, larger approaches to some of the things that you're talking about. I don't think are things that have been contemplated yet at this point, but you know, certainly if you all have ideas on council, I think we'd certainly be open to having a conversation about that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Seeing that there are no more questions, we are now closing out this particular presentation. Thank you, Mr. Wolf and Ms. Castle, for this presentation. We will take just a few minutes to transition to our next department, our Chief Operating Officer office. Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome back, everyone. Now we're going to our third and last department of the night. And tonight with us, we have the Chief Operating Officer's office, and led by Shay Ayay. So Shay, the floor is yours, and please also introduce the leadership alongside with you as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Council President, and council members. It's great to be here this evening, presenting on the Office of Chief Operating Officer. I'll do quick introductions real quick so you are familiar with those that are sitting next to me. I have Siobhan Campbell, who is the director of the new OVP office. Next to him is Courtney Jackson, who helps to support the North Promise Zone. Then next to Courtney is Janice Castle, who you've met from the past presentation, who supports the community engagement, myself, and to my right is Paul Drummy, who supports capital improvement projects. So before I begin, I just want to, first of all, I've been in this role for about, 5 or 6 weeks. I do want to give a recognition to all the department heads who put in a lot of dedication, their hours, and their efforts to their specific functions to help support the city and the residents. And I know you've listened to all of their presentations over the past couple of weeks. In my role, as we go on to the next slides, in my role is to serve as the principal, manage and aid to the mayor, and continue to oversee the day-to-day operations and coordinate special projects as well. And I'm going to speak to some of the strategic plan priorities, which is to lead interdepartmental efforts to support the city for the benefit of residents, businesses, visitors, and employees. Is to continue to improve performance of the city departments, including significant projects that require interdepartmental collaboration, especially when we find that there are some obstacles, and to expand the efforts to use data to inform decision-making throughout operating departments. So not just to solve issues as they occur or be reactive to it, but more prescriptive approach before these problems occur. So here you see the department organizational chart structure. As I mentioned before, I continue to support the department heads and interdepartmentally. However, this office also has division heads who most are sitting next to me. Under this office also sits the Division of Equity and Opportunity, led by Karen Taylor, and who is supported from an administrative admin perspective by Kim Taylor. And under this office also sits the IG Inspector General. Then we have also the new initiative, as I mentioned and I introduced Siobhan Campbell. This was formerly the Office of Safety and Wellness, led by Patricia McIntosh, who recently transitioned to the Human Health HHS department as the Deputy Director, and he is helping to support the Office of Violence Prevention. And then, last office is the Capital Projects, CIP, Capital Projects and Operations, supported by Paul Drummy. He has a management analyst, Christopher Amaya, who helps support the analytic functions of that office. Under Paul sits the Office of Sustainability, supported by Cecilia Drayton. And under Paul also sits the Office of Performance Manager, supported by Corey Mills. And the last thing I'd mention is the 311 operational function sits within the Office of the Chief Operating Officer. So as we start off with the Capital Projects and Operations Division, and this division, as you would know, specifically went about a few weeks ago, perhaps, but I'll focus on just the highlights and show like a brief high-level overview of some of the work that they're working on. They continue to manage about $130 million in the 5-year capital project. This includes many of our city assets, so parks, transportation, facilities, infrastructure. They've led efforts to onboard program manager for the 3 schools Mayland, McDonough, and Parkville that will be on the priority list. They successfully managed the priority list for submission of the San and Sanchez and Batchlander School renovation projects at 95% reimbursement rate. Actually, when I see the 95% reimbursement rate, we are working closely with our legislators to assure that many of our projects continue to be at this rate, because if the reimbursement rate were to change or to go lower specifically, we would have significant cash flow problems. So we're working closely with our legislative partners to support that initiative. Implemented interactive project management software. This software is truly amazing. I know some, if not all, have had a chance to experience it. This allows us to see in real time some of the capital projects that are happening around the city of Hartford. You can see project updates. There's a map that shows where the project is, gives a status update. So it is truly, truly amazing to help us. It truly does help us manage each construction project as it occurs. And lastly, is continued focus on synergies and operational efficiencies. And that could include, whether that's finding savings or master development planning, master facility planning, post-development backup plans, et cetera. As we go to the sustainability department, Cecilia has really done a phenomenal job leading this work. Quite frankly, almost, of course with the support of Paul, but almost by herself, because her department's not fully staffed as of yet, which is something that we continue to work on. Partnered with energy brokers to support the city and secure lower energy rates, resulting in an estimated $2.2 million in avoided costs for the city of Hartford. Those are true savings that we are avoiding, cost avoidance savings through negotiated rates. Continued the Solar for All campaign to help residents reduce their energy costs in response to supply rate increases. A total of 576 residents have enrolled, saving an average of $1,700 annually. Secured $6 million in funding to establish the Capital Stewardship Initiative to holistically address the health and vitality of Hartford's urban forests. And this really helps the the people who need additional monetary or financial support maintain some of the trees around the area. They maintain sustainable CT silver level certification, and added the climate leader designation to the city's accomplishments for exceptional leadership in addressing climate change and fostering resilience. Speaks to, again, the amount of work that Cecilia does within her department as the sole leader. And lastly, secured $50,000 in funding from community partnerships initiative to support an outreach program to enroll residents in the state-funded energy CT efficiency program. Then we go to the performance management department, and I'll speak through some of the highlights. Corey Mills leads this department and has done an exceptional job in allowing or focusing on data to help make decisions and solve problems. The first that I'll list is the full evaluation of our community centers, all of our community centers, which is 5, with the goal of identifying areas that need attention. And you may know or have exposure to many of our community centers. We are working very hard and deliberately to focus on not just maintaining, but also helping to renovate the space for the future use and upkeep of that space. And that was in collaboration, of course, with Department of Children, Youth, and Family. Next, I'd like to highlight is he was able to facilitate and spearhead the vehicle equipment and technology requests process by using data to make informed recommendations. I mean, we have so many vehicles within the city of Hartford, amounts of 630 total, and the majority are majority on that list specifically are police, fire, DPW. So this process helps us to focus on vehicles that have reached or are over the life expectancies aspect, and also this data also helps us manage and be more fiscally responsible as we continue to replace the vehicles that we have on that list. And last thing I'd like to identify within this office is the continued creation of policies and practices for progressive, responsible operation of the city of Hartford, such as we have a lot of special events that occur in the city of Hartford, in conjunction with the corporate council, revenue collections, and development services. We continue to improve our process of managing, permitting, and establishing expectations for many of these special events. Ongoing review of internal practice of 311, and again, ongoing update of City of Hartford performance metrics and measures. And at that point, I kind of want to highlight a bit more because, in this role, this office is going to continue to collaboratively work with the performance management office, in that as we look at the metrics or goals that you've seen sort of in the budget book, it's important to not just state, but also track outcomes as it relates to each specific department head. And this is something that this is something that, is an initiative of not just mine, but also the mayor's, as we get further down into the year and into the next coming years. Next is our Equity and Opportunity Office, led by Karen Taylor. And, this office focuses on three things, which is community engagement, employee engagement, and resident engagement. And to start with community engagement, Karen has done a great job in facilitating partnerships with different organizations. If I were to speak from an internship perspective, she was able to build partnership with Hartford Promise and Trinity College. And what I didn't mention is this of course is in collaboration with Janice Castle, who's sitting to the left of me. Again, I don't know, Janice, when you sleep, I'm not sure, but Janice works very collaboratively with Karen and in events planning. So when I speak to the annual Juneteenth celebration, this is in heavy collaboration with Janice's team. From an employee engagement perspective, Karen has implemented a process to monitor completion of sexual harassment training for our colleagues. She has continued to work collaboratively with HR on the equal employee opportunity process, and has presents to city departments on topics of EDI and compliance training. From a residents engagement perspective, we've earned 100% on the Human Rights Campaign's Municipality Equality Index, created and filled a police department liaison role by Sergeant Tyrell Jenkins, partnered with the YWCA for a 50-50 campaign to increase civic participation and representation, and supported the CPRB in becoming a functioning board with a cleared backlog of cases. Again, this office is where the Inspector General sits, so a large part of this office is also working with the CPRB as well as the IG, Inspector General. As we get into this next slide, which states the community safety and wellness, and the reason why that's there is because before the prior administration, that's what the title of the office was, again led by Patricia McIntosh. But this year, with the new initiative of the Office of Violence Prevention that Siobhan, the director of that office, is leading, many of those functions also roll up into Siobhan. First of which is the Neighborhood Ambassadors Initiative, and this has ongoing funding support through surcharge funding from NIP bottles and cannabis tax revenue, but has also continued success with both employment and housing navigation and support, with 14 commercial corridors being cleaned and adding 26 traffic islands. And this really helps to support the neighborhood from different aspects. Next is the Reentry Welcome Center. And this provides ongoing one-stop services for re-entering citizens seeking support with housing, employment, basic needs, support cases, management services. And this really shows and provides a true wraparound service for many of our residents who have faced punitive services. Second is ongoing. The funding comes from cannabis tax revenue for this service. Another program is the HVIP program, and this continues to build relationships between the three trauma centers, that's Connecticut Children, Hartford Hospital, and St. Francis, and local CBOs to provide comprehensive care to victims of gun violence and their families. It truly is an exceptional program. They're continue to do yeoman's work to address many of the concerns that happen and support the after effects of when a person experiences gun violence. And there's a strong need for collaboration and data sharing to be most effective in serving the community. Siobhan continues to work on this with many of our community partners, and with, of course, HIPAA considerations due to the sensitivity of what could occur if there aren't the right protections around data sharing. The fourth program that I like to mention in this office is the CVIPI, also known as Community Violence Intervention and Prevention Initiative, that calls for credible messengers who are trained and who've graduated from Capitol campus of CT State Community Colleges to be life coaches and support individuals at risk of repeat gun violence offenses. And additionally, this team has worked to improve camera integration for Hartford residents and businesses, but they've also used technology to help solve crime rates. And this has been in collaboration with our C4 partnership, C4 program, excuse me, and that is Capital City Crime Center. Next office I'd like to highlight is Courtenay's office, which is the North Hartford Prime Zone. And, you know, as I speak to the North Hartford Promise Zone, I can speak to the Ascend Pipeline, which, you know, in this space encourages community members to be engaged through conversations, and we incentivize them actually monetarily to give their input on what they are seeing in the neighborhood, what they're finding, the issues that they're dealing with, how can we improve and revitalize the neighborhood to come to creative solutions together. And, you know, Courtenay has been leading these efforts with many other organizations, and they've been able to put on different types of fairs, different types of activities within that zone. Many of which, but I'll speak to three individually. The annual health fair with 90 service providers and over 400 residents participating. And then we had the housing fair with 23 service providers, highlighting home purchasing and maintenance, as well as landlord rights and renters information. And we're able to provide, you know, information on filling out healthy home grants. The third of which is summer activity fair sponsored by the Department of Family, Children, and Youth, Ascend Pipeline, Faith SDA Church, where 31 vendors attended and over 225 community partners also attended. Lastly is the VISTA program, and, you know, American Vista is program that calls for 1 year volunteerism. Last year we had 7, I believe. We're looking to expand that 7 to be 10 this year to continue to support this program. And what's the final on this list is the My Brother's Keepers program, which allowed for 80% of the participant to be matriculated in a 4-year university. And My Brother's Keeper supports young black and brown to help them matriculate. And that's in collaboration with Urban League and other organizations. For the next slide, as I mentioned before, and was also in the past presentation, the operations of the Office of 311 system also sits in the COO's office. So here you can see sort of, the breakdown of the calls that we're receiving for this fiscal year. It's not the full fiscal year, but for this fiscal year as of March 31st. And in that first pie chart, you see that there's really, most of the calls, 80% are informational calls, which we're able to answer relatively quickly, give feedback and support them, which doesn't call for a work request or work order. The 21% breakdown is to the right of that first pie chart, and that's broken down by the departments. In this pie chart, you see the largest work order department is the Public Works Department, followed by DDS, and then Human Health Services. Now, I mentioned the OVP office before. What I didn't mention was the mission, the strategy, the framework. The reason why the mayor called for this initiative is he wanted a stronger focus on partnership with the community to provide for safer neighborhoods. And there are many different strategies that we can do this, but the 3 main ones are to continue to focus and continue to center the community voice, calling for listening sessions, understanding what's going on within the community so we can be proactive. And then second, targeting federal funding to bring additional support to the city, because that is certainly necessary. And lastly, to continue to strengthen collaborations with police department, CBOs, Hartford Public Schools, and different hospitals. And here's the true framework of this office, and that is really through prevention, intervention, and treatment. Prevention includes strategies to prevent violence before it occurs. And then intervention is how do you take action, once it has occurred. And then lastly is treatment. And what do you provide, and which services do you provide to the individuals to help them improve outcomes and help them manage their symptoms and health, whether that's physical, emotional, mental, or even financial. This is now the budget comparison within this specific office, broken down into general funds and grants. There's a 1.4% change at absolute value, $21,000 change from the adopted to the recommended year. Adopted FY24 to recommended FY25. And there's a 145% grant increase in the grant funds. And majority of the funds majority of the increase is explained really by the wage increases. And I would just note again that the OVP office was created, and this takes into account the related programs, services of the former Community Safety and Wellness Program. The last slide that I would like to mention is the staff composition slide. With, this office actually houses 20 FTEs. However, There are 14 FTEs that are currently staffed now within the office, and the residency breakdown is 71% City of Hartford, 29% non-city. You have the race and ethnicity breakdown with a 36% Hispanic and 36% African American, 7% white, 7% others, and 14% prefer not to say. And from a gender perspective, it's a 50-50 split down the line. And with that, I'll pass it back to you, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Yai. I'd like to open up the floor for my colleagues to ask any questions or make any statements. Assistant Majority Leader Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. Thank you for your presentation. Question, going back to the sustainability, for the Office of Sustainability. Has the city looked into creating an energy grid for the city of Hartford?
An M2 grid?
Yes.
I'm going to pass it to Paul to help answer that question.
Good evening, everyone. So, Councilman Clark, the short answer is yes, but it requires a little more explanation. So, right now we have our microgrid in the Parkville section of the city, which will operate a gas station, a grocery store, a community center, and the library. So, during an event, the city has a place to go to plug in. We are seeking other opportunities with other projects like that, Councilman. So when the grid does go down, we have additional opportunities for the City of Hartford residents.
Okay, thank you. So follow-up question to that. Is there any possibility to utilize the old landfill as an area?
My short answer, Councilman, would be yes. But there's a lot more information that we would need, feasibility study to make sure that it's viable.
And what's like that timeline? What would that be like?
So I think first is the MIRA dissolution, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and once that is complete, I think the city can have the conversation of what the next steps looks like. But at this moment, I think that process is still happening.
Okay. Next question I have, don't worry, I'll be brief because I know people are ready to go home. Mr. Chief Operating Officer, you have a whole lot of division heads under you. And can you just walk us through, because we were under the impression that some of your division heads were actually under the mayor's office. So can you explain the rationale for that shift? For example,
Yeah, please. Thank you.
Office of Sustainability, that used to be under the mayor's office as a division. The Division of Community Violence Prevention, that used to be under the mayor's office, is now under the COO. So can you
Yeah.
just...
Thank you for the question. So the Office of Safety and Wellness last fiscal year sat under the former COO. And that office was sort of, I don't want to say disbanded, but restructured, if you will, to create the Office of Violence Prevention, which started this year, more recently, and now sits under, he's still under the COO, along with the leader, Courtney Jackson, who supports the North Hartford Promise Zone. You also mentioned, what was the first office you mentioned?
Sustainability.
The sustainability sat last fiscal year also under the COO. But they're all the mayor's initiatives. So they all essentially report up through the COO.
Thanks for that clarification. However, it was led for us to believe that these were actual personnel that sat under in the mayor's office.
No, yeah, well, I don't know, I'm happy to help clarify. The one initiative, though, that does sit still under the mayor's office is the Business One-Stop Shop. That doesn't report to the CEO. The budget sits within the office of DDS, but the person, Don Chapman, reports to the mayor.
It's complicated.
Yeah, you're telling me. Yeah, no, I spend a lot of time trying to wrap my head around dotted lines, solid lines, budget lines, and they're I can certainly follow up on specifics if you would like.
So with this organizational chart, which is very large, how do you manage running the city with no deputy?
Great question. I'm still in the process of going through my, I think over the last couple of weeks, I have had one-on-ones, of course, multiple one-on-ones with department heads, but also this office's division heads. We have bi-weekly meetings that have been set up to occur, I believe it's on a Tuesday, where priority items do arise and we address, and there's an understanding and an expectation that if any emergencies occur, any things that need to be addressed occur, you text, call, email, or find me, because I'm usually very close in this building. So there are always open lines of communication, and I have been arranging and scheduling one-on-one meetings, and now they will be on a specific cadence based off of the frequency of which we need to meet.
Okay. Do we have an ETA on hiring an inspector general?
As you know, there is no true ETA yet. I can't speak to that. However, as of this week, we did review the former job description on that. Before, I actually had a specific conversation with the mayor this morning, and he requested that the council president, Eric Crawford, and HR review the job description before we post it. Not that you need to, but he thought that it would be a great suggestion, given that there's a collaboration to hire the next IG. So once we post that position, we can start hiring.
Okay. And my last question for this round, Mr. Chair. Going the breakdown of the composition. Under the non-City of Hartford residency, are any of those your division directors?
Non-City Hartford residency?
Yes.
I'd have to think on that and get back to you.
And follow-up question, are they subject to the residency clause?
No, they're not, no.
Okay.
Those would just be the department heads.
I thought unclassified employees also were subject to residency.
I can follow up on that, but perhaps that's the case, but I can confirm.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Madam President.
Thank you very much for the presentation. I'm going to follow up to the oversight of managing 3 divisions plus about 12 or so departments, especially when I looked at your slide with the work order per department, the three major, the highest department of work are the Public Works Development Services, and then managing three different divisions. That's a lot of oversight. And I'm trying to wrap my head around, you've got great division, you've got great department heads. Let me first by saying that. You know, and which is a huge help towards you. But keeping track of three such major divisions, the three divisions that you're starting, I'm a little bit worried regarding the oversight for the operation of the city. You know, not, and especially not having an assistant. I think we used to have, didn't we used to have a deputy assistant? I can't remember.
I didn't mention that the office does have an assistant, Gabrielle.
I'm talking about, I think we used to have like a assistant to the chief operating officer.
Like a deputy COO.
Yeah, I say deputy, but it's the assistant to the COO. And I don't see that position here in your flow chart. Or is it, did I miss it?
There is no deputy COO that reports to
Or
me.
assistant? But what about an assistant COO?
Gabrielle acts as the support person in that role.
Okay, operation manager and assistant. All right, so is that more of a clerical, more than actual operation for the entire city?
It is very administrative for the
It's an
office.
admin, okay, for the, over the years, there was a separate assistant to the CEO, not an administrative assistant, but I would use the word a deputy, department head, for example, that used to manage, you know, along with you, the actual operation of the entire city. And I don't see that in the Department of the Budget anymore. So basically, I think what I see you've done is sort of take that position and kind of made it three different divisions, break it up over three different divisions, I think.
Yeah, I don't think the position was broken into three. I can't speak to the history of that, but I don't think
Okay.
the position itself was broken up into three specific functions to function as a deputy. What I do know, though, is that the reason why these officers sit within the office of the COO is because of the operational function as a whole. Like CIP itself is a large, as you've heard recently, operation in itself, where we're managing large capital to support many of our assets. You know, that is its own operation in itself and has to be in close collaboration with the office of the mayor, but also the office of the COO. And all of the projects that we're managing in CIP, for instance, interacts heavily with the other department heads. So there is the interdepartmental function that the COO's office helps to deliver. I say that for that specific office, but also the others that sit under the office of the COO.
Okay.
But, you know, I can keep, you raise a point about the management of not just this specific office with the three division heads, but also
Yeah.
the department heads that exist within the office within their specific functions. And as you did mention, you know, I think a large part of this is the expertise that each department head has. If we were if our department heads weren't as strong as they are in nature, we would be at a very different place. My management of the city from an operational perspective is in collaboration with many of all of the department heads from a communicative perspective and oversight perspective.
Okay, one last question, and then I will, in the budget, you had about $5 million, I think, in grants. And then when I went to and I lost my page in the grants, I think there was still about $1 million, I've got to find my grants page, I apologize. 35.3, thank you. Yep. Okay. I'm not gonna steal the committee chair question, so I will yield to my committee chair.
It's probably a different question. It's probably a different question.
Thank you.
This,
I'm yielding to my committee chair.
this may be a totally different question, so I don't know now. I don't know now. Now I feel bad. So,
I yield to you, sir.
so here's my question about the grants, right? So 100% of your grants are ARPA money. So that's $5.2 million. They're all ARPA money. So ARPA money has, a deadline, I don't know if it's like by the end of 2025 or so that you have to spend it. There are 3 positions, especially under the community safety and wellness, 3 positions that are funded with ARPA money. So I ask this question now because I don't want to have to ask this question later in April or May of 2025 and to try to figure out, how do we keep these positions, how do we keep this department or this division, up and running? And this is more towards that sustainability kind of question. What are the plans that your office has to maintain these 3 positions and also all the work that these $5.2 million are funding, knowing that this money, it's only this coming year and that's it?
Right. I'm gonna yield to Julian to help support that because we've spoken about it.
So, and not just for the ARPA-supported positions here, but other ARPA-supported positions as well. A number of them are vacant, and I think out of about a dozen positions, I think 5 are currently filled. And so, it's sort of an ongoing process of taking a look at which ones we're going to fill, and for those that we do fill and keep filled, transitioning them into the general fund over the next 2 fiscal years, FY '26 and '27, because it would be FY '27 would be the last point at which we could draw down funds from ARPA halfway through the fiscal year. So we're looking at absorbing those positions over the next couple of fiscal years. Exactly which ones, I'm not certain yet because there's still a little bit of movement within them. But those, bringing those positions in has been factored into our 5-year plan, which isn't really part of this discussion, but something that we update every year for the MARB and have a running, an ongoing updated 5-year outlook.
Well, I'm glad to hear that there is a plan and at least there's some thought behind this. But I'll definitely most likely be asking this question, later down the road, maybe 5-6 months down the road to see how that plan is panning out. Just because I want to avoid having this conversation, right, in April or May of what are we doing now with only 2 months, to go into the fiscal year. If this is such an important department, especially the community safety and wellness and all the work that's done under that division, then I'd like to make sure that then we preserve that, and that we're planful about how we can sustain that position beyond ARPA funding.
Right. And as we get closer, that plan gets more into focus. So we have a better idea of which positions, will be phased in and which ones will just stay vacant.
Right. Thank you. And I'm going to switch gears now, and this is most likely a question for Ms. Castle here. So when I look at the appendix and there is some data there about the 311 calls, and please, this question is only so I can understand where the needs may be, because when I look at FY22, FY23, and then the 9 months of FY24 that are reported on this appendix, when I look at the total calls and the calls answered, there's been a drop in percentage, right? From 2022, it's a 68% rate of answering, then it went down to 67, now it went down to 60, so it's kind of like trending downwards. And then the average time, the average hold time has been kind of double since last year. Compared to last year, it's kind of more than doubled. So I'd like to know, with the same staffing, 3.5 staffing, how do we, is there any particular reason that we are trending that way?
Yes, so some of it residual from COVID, because if you remember, my team was responsible for booking all the COVID testing appointments, so that resulted in a very high volume. Then we slowly started to trend down. What we've experienced, which is not really a bad thing, but lucky for me, I've been able to really hire some great talents, and they've been recruited away by different departments. So different times in the year, I was down 2 staff members, so which resulted in a decrease in our ability to take calls. So there were longer hold times during that period, but we're currently, as of this month, we are fully back, fully staffed. So we've seen some deep dip in our staffing numbers, but they did not leave our department for external, they left for internal city departments. One of the other things that we're seeing, and I think we're gonna continue to see a shift. One is when we did the transition, of course, but two, one of the things that we're working with our department is to be really more proactive in terms of the types of requests, right? And so we're seeing things and we're reporting it ourselves, our departments, working with Public Works where they're actually, as they're out, they're reporting things or taking care of things. So we're starting to less rely on our residents to report issues to us and trying to be more proactive in terms of when we see something, we put it in, we respond as city employees as we're driving through. So we're gonna see a shift before the numbers get back up. But again, some of that drop is due to staffing. I was down 2 staff people for a while.
Thank you. Councilman Gale?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to return to the subject of the grants, the grant money that, or the ARPA money, I guess, that's included in the budget. And in the charts that we have, it shows that, of all this $5 million that's being allocated, it's funding a little less than 4 full-time equivalents. I take it that means that the large bulk of this money is being contracted out, that we're paying, and some of these lines, I guess I can understand. City marketing campaign, I take it we are putting that out to contract to somebody to do some marketing for the city. But the largest one in there is the community-based violence intervention, pretty substantial number, 1.6 million. And I'm just wondering if there's a current plan for how that's being spent, and whether that is something, along with some of the others, whether these are something that I could find out about as a council member. If I want to know, who are we hiring for marketing, or who are, where any one of these particular line items is being spent.
There is a report that's prepared at least quarterly by the finance director, CFO Rawls, that provides a considerable amount of detail on the city's use of the ARPA funds, which we could, if you aren't already copied on those reports, we could get those to you, and that would give you a much more detailed description of the outlays.
Are you able to tonight discuss that one line item, the community-based violence intervention, to give us some idea of where that money's being spent?
I wouldn't want to do it off the top of my head because some of the categories, the names are so similar that I'd rather do the research and get back to you with the detail.
That would be great. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's all I have.
All right. Councilman Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Director Jay, and all of you. I have, actually, sort of follows up on Councilman Hernandez's question about the 311 responses and Ms. Castle's response about the staffing. But it's a broader question than just 311. You said one of the main functions of the office is to improve performance and efficiency throughout the city. and I mentioned 311 because it seems like if you have a situation where you have 3 staff members, but you're frequently losing them, even losing them in a good way to other jobs in the city, maybe what you need to maintain an adequate level of service is 4 staffers or something, right? And so my question really is, in terms of overall looking at efficiency in the city, what's the process for the staffing numbers of a given department or division? I mean, we've heard other directors say that when they want an extra position, they make a business case for that position. But I presume that there's some science there, in the sense that, like, well, I know, for example, custodians in the Board of Ed, and I know that's not your department, but as an example, they have a formula that looks at square footage of the buildings and some other factors to sort of say, okay, we need X number of custodians, right? So how often do you review what are the staffing numbers of the various departments, and how do you do that? How do you do that review?
Yeah, I have different thoughts on how to address many of what you're mentioning. When I look at the department, for instance, the DDS planning department, and the vacancies we have specifically within that space. Right now, we don't have a planning director, and we are down many planners, senior planners specifically, and I believe we lost a few, 1 or so junior planners. For that instance, we were able to support that department with, in the interim, contracting out with planning services, essentially, to help support applications. So hopefully there isn't a dip in the response time. That's one example.
Well, let me
Overall-
stop you just because I
Please.
think maybe I didn't phrase my question well enough, and so you're answering what is probably what it sounded like my question was, but not what I meant to ask.
Sure.
So let me be clear. I guess what I'm saying is, take the example of the planning department. Is there some point when you look at, right, because they have X number of positions, however many, 3, 5, I don't know. Is there ever a point when you say, when your office asks why they have that many? Is that every year? Or why that many, why not more, whatever the case may be? Like, is that every year? How does that work?
Of course, yeah. I'm not familiar with how it worked in the past, but over the next couple of months, again, as I mentioned, I'm going to be working with the Office of Performance Management, Office of Performance Metrics, to support and answer questions specific to that. And that's how do you manage staffing as it relates to the flex of the operations itself for each function. So to answer your question, right now there does not exist a process that I'm aware of, at least, for staffing each space as it relates to flex, but that's something that I'll be working on for the future.
Appreciate that. So is that something that perhaps we could expect for next budget year?
Yes, of course.
And
I think 1 year is adequate, more than adequate time.
Be careful the promises you make about future projects. That's something you'll learn from the veterans around here.
Of course. I do think, though, 1 year is adequate time, because the process is, I think, to create a process to help support that also helps with fiscal responsibility as well. So I'm not, it's a promise that I think I'll keep.
And
Appreciate it.
if I can add to that as well, so we do take a look to see what the call volume is, to see the hold times, and so that is something that we have assessed. When I first took over the department, my department started with 1 additional staff, and then we had 2.5 at 311. And after looking at the numbers, we determined that we needed another full-time position. The other thing that we looked at was like the salary range, the way that my department, my 311 staff are union, and they're 1716. And one of the things that we looked at is that while my staff stayed for a very long time, the salary rates were so low that when other opportunities came up, they left. So we've worked with the department, with the union to reassign their coding and how they're coded and create an increase. But my staff that has moved on, they were with me for 4 years plus. So they tend to stay. So those are some of the things that we look at. And so now that we are back to full staff, these are some of the things we'll be looking at to see, does the hold time go down? Do we have the right system? And we partner with MHIS very closely and Director Charisse to make sure that we have the right technology, and we are looking at what's trending and how we can adjust that. But we do take those things into consideration because we know that we are the customer service line for the city.
Appreciate that. And I want to be clear, I use that as an example only because Councilman Hernandez had brought it up, but I really meant, citywide. And of course, what I'm really thinking about is the police department, which always has 370 cops and always said they need 470 and never discloses the nature of the analysis that gets them there. So it would probably be good to have an independent analysis of why they need to put us fourth in the nation in police per capita, why that's the dream. So projects for the future.
No, yeah, and I'm sure there exists some methodologies as to why they staff it the way they do. My comments are more around creating efficiencies around.
Right, understood.
those. Okay.
And so another question about efficiency and about the police, because they are our biggest non-education department. But this, again, applies broadly, but I picked them because it's a lot of money. I think you actually mentioned this in a presentation, using data around fleet management and the purchase of vehicles. And when the police chief was up here, I asked him a bunch of questions. I don't know if you were in the room. I mean, I hope for your sake you weren't, because it's boring as all get out. But about buying more expensive, less efficient, more dangerous vehicles from a more expensive supplier than is available. And, he kind of just said, well, actually we don't do that, but really they do. Is there any oversight of the police purchasing, to keep them from just always buying the less fuel efficient, larger vehicle because they like them?
So the VET program that I mentioned, uses data to help analyze and document vehicles and the replacements that's necessary for, and which capital or how much dollars needs to help fund those replacements. That does, I believe, go through the process. However, I can get specifics for you on that question.
I would be delighted with that. Thank you.
No problem.
And lastly, also related and inspired by the police, but not limited to the police, what is the oversight process for, this is related to staffing too, for how much overtime gets worked in various departments as it relates to having contractors, having more full-time staff, and other non-hiring management choices? Like, how does that play out?
Yeah, that's a convoluted answer. I can also follow up with you on that.
Thanks. That's all I have.
All right.
He
Council
wants to
President.
go home so badly.
No, you did. You did tell me. I'm sorry. Council President.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Even though I did, let you ask my grant's question, but it's okay. Last term, we passed a resolution with cannabis revenue, and in that resolution, we funded like the Welcome Center, I think it was, the Reentry Center. This is a new term, and so does that policy carry forward to now? And number two, one of the issues and concerns I'm hearing in the community is the decrease, in that cannabis funding that's coming to the city. Um, So how is that working out? Because we're going to have to really take a look at that, that funding. And if this new council body wants to continue using those funds for the Reentry Welcome Center.
Right, the council approved the resolution that you just described back in the fall, earmarking or directing those funds to reentry programs. And what you'll see if you look in the draft ordinances that are included in the FY25 budget, you'll see among those, or just following you draft ordinances, is a draft resolution that essentially continues that policy for the next fiscal year. So the draft resolution basically says any funds, and I believe it's an up to amount, up to $500,000 collected from the cannabis tax revenues would be directed to these reentry programs. And of course, you can modify the resolution. I'm sorry? Yes, yes. So
Okay.
it's subject to your modification. In terms of amounts, we currently have 2 dispensaries that are online and paying the tax. One came online at the tail end of last fiscal year, and the other one came online probably 2 or 3 months ago. Right now, I would project that the combined revenue for this fiscal year would be just over $100,000 between those 2. I don't have a crystal ball about how many more will come online, but hopefully over time we'll see a few more, continuing to add to that revenue stream.
One of the complaints I've heard from 1 or 2 of the certified or the permitted, the 2 ones that have been here, is there is going to be a decline or decrease in revenues coming in due to some of the pop-up shops within our city, that are also, selling, merchandise and stuff like that. And that is decreasing their revenue, and from their revenue that comes to the city. So to the chief operating officer, that's something that we really need to take a look at.
Of course.
Is these smoke shops that are popping up. Which will also, they don't pay taxes, they are not participating in the cannabis sales program, so we can get our share of the, the cannabis sales. And so I believe the state is also worried about the decreasing, over the next year or so if we don't get a handle on these, smoke shops. There's a bit. Talk louder so I can hear you. Jeez.
Mr. Chair, if I may. Through you, I think, Council President, there's a bill that's still being debated in the General Assembly that's going to have some regulation to these stores that are selling these products on the black market.
Okay.
Yeah, so, so hopefully, not sure what our ordinances does, but taking a look at that, because again, it's the city who's actually losing
Of course.
from these black market shops that are on the market. So, but we'll take a look at this, and as you said, Mr. Julian, that if we can adjust this or,
Change the
changes as we see fit. Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Seeing that there are no additional questions. Yep, no additional questions.
Can I just ask one question?
There are actually additional questions, Council President.
I've never seen resolution in the budget book before, Julian. This is new, or am I just not remembering last year memory?
No, I can't speak to before last year, but that resolution certainly is new. And it's just because of the sort of unique nature of the way that was written in statute, is that the statute treats it as a general revenue in one sense, by calling it a general revenue that we would then have to appropriate to the budget process. But on the other hand, it restricts the uses to about a half a dozen different uses, which by definition makes it not a general revenue. And so we went back and forth on how to handle it and how to deal with it in the budget, and settled on just, presenting it as a resolution that you can, approve annually, modify annually. Ideally, as the revenue grows, maybe there are more uses that the funds are directed to.
Okay,
But
so,
it is different.
so we said this like a, 500, up to 500,000. Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Before we adjourn this meeting, I'd like to remind the public that this coming Monday on May 6th, we're going to have department hearings for Corporation Council, Register of Voters, and the Town Clerk's Office, followed by Tuesday, May 7th, where we're going to have our final public hearing at Weaver High School. So we encourage residents to stop by Weaver High School at 6 p.m. and ask your questions, make your statements, sign up ahead of time by sending an email to Noelia Ortiz. And with that being said, we would like to just say thank you to the CEO's office and to the leadership here with us for this great presentation, and to stay here, as long as you did. So thank you very much. This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you. Did you notice that about, I never looked for the book.